Glad to know you're still with us. Now we take you to our first topical issue of the day, and that is the sudden death of a popular singer, a Nigerian gospel singer, Osinachi Nwachukwu, who allegedly died as a result of unreported serial domestic violence meted out to her by her husband, Peter Nwachukwu. Initial reports said the 42-year-old had been sick with throat cancer, but her family denied that, alleging that she had been a victim of domestic abuse. Many Nigerians, especially Christians, have reacted with sorrow and anger to the news of her death. Some have gone online to urge religious leaders not to advise church members to stay in abusive relationships. And discussing this with us this morning is Pastor Olufemi Agbola, resident pastor, Lighthouse Saints Alive Ministries. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. It's quite sensitive, you know. But let's start from the issue of domestic violence. We don't want to focus on the unfortunate incident that has happened, but domestic violence has been from time memorial, and it has taken various shapes and forms. Now, I think the latest has to be faith-based, you know, domestic violence, wherein it seems like a certain faith permits, in quote, that such violence to occur. So I would like to have your take on domestic violence, then how it has taken that shape in terms of faith-based violence.
When you say faith permits it, let me,
For issues of a certain religious doctrine does not permit for divorce, hence, regardless of the marriage being abusive or not, the victim has to be in it.
Okay, just like I started saying earlier, it's a very sensitive topic. Even from the time of Christ, Old Testament, the issue of divorce. There is the issue of precedence. Interestingly, there is no place in Scripture, whether the Old or New Testament, where there's a precedence of a man beating his wife for any reason. You know, they have had an issue of maybe infidelity, a woman leaving the husband, but there have never been a case whereby there was violence at home, not in the Old Testament, not in the New Testament. So there's no precedence to say this was how it was dealt with in this case or in that case. No precedence. And no question was ever asked any of the prophets or Christ himself, if my husband is beating me, what should I do? So there was no precedence to say this is why the church should act. So we have the Christ teaching says that there should be no divorce. You know, people brought up different reasons, but there was no issue of violence. So what I have from church history, which we no longer have now, we no longer do rather, is that through church history, they used to have what they call councils, where various church leaders come together and sit down on topics that are confronting the church. One of such was done in Nicaea in 325 AD, where different denominations for about 4 months, May to August, sat down and said, look, this is troubling us. This is troubling us. Let's deal with it. You know, so the matter of violence is something we need to sit down again and say, okay, we didn't have precedents for violence in marriages. People are dying. Women are dying. What should we do? What steps should we take? Should we ask the woman to leave for some time? Should we ask, should the church have funds reserved to build houses for such cases until the guy is counseled? We need to have a discussion about it. There are some things that the scriptures are silent about. For example, there's no place in scripture you see gambling, you see pornography, you see smoking, you see cocaine, you see crack. It's not there. But we have to look at it, discuss it, find ways around it. Elders discuss, okay, there's no precedence on this thing, no instruction. What do we do? So the issue of violence is something that is confronting us. People are dying. Yeah, people are dying.
And as you said, some of these things do not have a precedence that you can base your laws or your actions on. But if you look at the ruckus this recent one is causing, especially on social media, a lot of people have been coming with different suggestions and saying that, yes, God hates divorce, but there is the option of separation. And when you look at the Nigerian system and you look at the process of divorce, it's a long process that a lot of people who say they are divorced may actually not be divorced in the actual sense. They don't have the papers to show for it. And so that begs the question of, is it separation or divorce? So if you say God hates divorce, but separation is okay, like you could walk out of the marriage for a while and avoid the violence and all of that. So are you saying that it is the paperwork that God hates and he's okay with the walking out?
Okay. For me, they're just, what I call it now, different terms. Divorce, separation. Divorce is really separation. It's to separate, you know. One has a legal backing, whereby it's from the law it's recognized, the one can do whatever she wants to do. But we are just brought in this new separation divorce to help her mind these times. Okay, we are not divorced legally, but let's separate to cool the air or something, like to know what you are doing. But it's supposed to be the same thing.
So why do we have even religious leaders going for separation and saying, no, do not divorce, but you can separate?
You know, let me now go again on the matter of a new precedence. People are scared, or leaders are afraid, that if you start sanctioning separation, that the numbers will go very high. That's one of the concerned leaders, religious leaders have. That if you sanction separation, numbers may go very high. It may not really be real. You know, in the early times in Christianity, there's a place in Scripture that the early fathers refused to put in Scripture for some time. What was the Scripture? When the woman was caught in adultery and they wanted to stone her, and Christ said that, who has condemned you? He said, nobody. He said, I did not condemn you as well. It caused a lot of controversy in the early church that if we put this in, is Christ saying he's sanctioning what this woman is doing? You know, there was fear that maybe misconstrued and used to say, Christ, I didn't condemn you. So the same thing in separation. People are afraid to say, if you say separation is okay, people may not want to resolve their issue anymore. Because in marriage, there are issues. May not always be violent, maybe tempers rise sometimes. So there's fear that if you say, okay, everybody can divorce, everybody can separate, the fear is that if people want to resolve their issues again, that at the slightest issue,
they take a walk.
Everybody take a walk. Nobody wants to anything. But every marriage has their issue. Yeah, every marriage has their issue. Sometimes maybe financial, maybe emotional, sometimes maybe seasonal, you know, and we work things out. Those who have stayed together 50 years, 30 years, they had issues that they had to work on. Some even had, sadly, at the start of a marriage, they had some issue of maybe aggressiveness. Let me not use violence now. That they worked on and they got better. So the fear is that if you just say separation, the new generation, anything,
now
they are off.
Now that those who tell you that should that concern or that fear of a spike in separation or divorce rates in the church, if the church advocates for that, should that supersede a human's life? Because now you over the last probably 2-3 decades, what you now have is not just the spike in domestic violence, but the victims dying.
Yeah.
So there's a spike in the death rate of victims of domestic violence.
Yes.
So that those would ask the question: should that concern or fear of religious leaders that if we now advocate for separation for some time or divorce, that would lead to?
Yeah, that's where we need to now separate the issue of violence from other issues causing divorce. Some divorce are caused by finances, husband lost his job. So let's not separate violence. How the church should address the matter of violence in the home. A woman is being beaten. What should she do? Should she remain there by praying for the man to get better, or should she move out of the place?
Let's also not forget that men also get violated, beaten, and all of that.
Maybe at a lower percentage.
Yes,
you know?
Of course.
Yeah. So should there be, when there's issue of violence, should there be a different approach? Should the church reconsider its stand and look when life is involved? When life is involved, what should we do? We have to have that discussion. What should we do? We are not talking, if it's from CAN or PFN, or we need to sit down and say, look, in this case, what should be done? Because somebody, I've had people, I read online, people are saying, you tell the woman should have left the marriage, should have walked away. But the reality is that if she had walked away, many of the ministration opportunities will be close to her. They will say she's a divorcee. They will not allow her on their pulpit to minister. So you are saying walk away. It has, if she walked away from the marriage, will you accept her to come to your church to minister as a divorcee? Or maybe someone try to even get married again? So it's not as simple as saying walk away. When it has come to ground, I just say walk away. But you should have this. Let's discuss it first. Walking away, is she still accepted by churches? Is she still seen as a Christian? Is there a soft landing for her that look, the church has looked at this thing. When violence is involved, we're allowed to walk away, to stay for some place, to get the man to rehab for maybe compulsory 18 months rehab. You understand? So we should talk about.
So when you say we should talk about it, who are you talking about?
Yes.
Are you saying the church elders? Are you saying that another constitution? We know that the only constitution that the church works with is the Bible. So are you saying that, of course, we cannot have another Bible?
There's something, when we grew up, I grew up in the Orthodox Church. We have what we call the Apostles' Creed. I don't know why you know Apostles' Creed. We have what we call the Nicene Creed, where church council of elders, bishop of different denominations, sat down and said, look, there's a lot of confusion on what Christianity is. What do we believe? Anglican, Methodist, what do we believe? Say we believe in this, believe in this, believe in this. So when I grew up in an Anglican church, where on Sunday we will recite that I believe in the Holy Catholic Church, I grew up wondering, how can the Anglican be saying they believe in Catholic Church? You know, but 200 years, 1,000 years has passed. They still say we believe in the universal. The word is Catholic universal. They still keep saying it because they set creed for themselves. So yes, the church, we have the constitution of the Bible, but the church can also say, how do we handle this matter? There was the issue of circumcision in Acts chapter 15. There was confusion. They all went back to Jerusalem.
That's recorded in the Bible.
Yes, but there was no precedence for circumcision problem. I said, okay, let's discuss it. What should we do? What should we do about it?
You're saying we should now come together as our own Bible.
You can, PFN, not the Bible, was like, look, there's a matter on ground. How do we undo violence? Yeah, there's no precedent to say this one, but there's a violence involved. How do we undo it? Yeah, we should talk. We have stopped talking.
But how will that be binding on every church? We know that there are still some divisions when it comes to even the body. Yeah. How does that trickle down
that's the problem,
and becomes binding? That's the
problem we have had. We are having in Christianity. Those times, though they were different denominations, Anglican, Methodists, they had things that were binding. Yeah, they could say, look, this is what we believe, this is where we stand. But now we have broken into different fragments that we don't even have a common fasting period. You know, we don't believe in Anglican fasting. So that's affected our progress. Let me use that word. Because so things happen. There's nothing is binding. But it should not supposed to be. Where's the scripture? Let's find a common ground. Yeah, because life has been lost.
Okay. You said earlier that if you read online about suggestions that the late gospel singer Osinachi should have left the marriage, and you had your concerns that if she had left, would other churches call her for ministrations and whatever, which is basically a source of livelihood.
Yes.
Now the question would then arise that the church as a strata of society, shouldn't it be a place of solace where, after the world has beaten you, you can easily go there to find solace and so on? Why would the church then discriminate against someone that it should accept wholeheartedly, considering the scripture says Jesus came for the sinners, not, the saved, in that sense?
Okay, maybe it's a different topic on its own now. the matter of church of its own,
Okay.
The place of acceptance, the place of finding solace, I think it's a different topic on its own because a lot has gone wrong.
Yeah.
A lot has happened. A lot has happened, and people get more beaten in churches. Yeah, more even abuse. A lot has gone on.
Okay, so, as a cleric, let's bring this down to the scriptures. Yeah, there may not be a clear-cut principle as to what to do when you're being beaten in a marriage, but there are some principles that by which people or couples can live and build their marriage. For instance, the scripture talks about if a believer is married to an unbeliever and the unbeliever is willing to stay in the marriage, then you can stay with the person. Maybe as a result of your godly conduct, the person may get saved. But in a case where the person is not willing to stay, because if someone is beating you, battering you every day, it could be emotional, it could be physical, it could be financial. So it doesn't have to be physical alone. So if the person is beating and battering you, it means the person is not willing to stay. Isn't that a clear-cut principle saying that in that situation, you're free to walk away?
So let me ask you a question. Osinachi is a believer. Is the husband a believer?
No, we're not even looking at the Osinachi
No,
context
I'm not talking
alone
about
now.
no. It was clear cut those times because there was clear separation of the Gentiles who are not idol worshippers, and the church just coming up in Corinthians. You know, there was the idol worshippers from Rome. There was the church just coming up. So the person already married to an idol worshipper, but now it's a believer married to a believer. So you can't say walk away from the unbeliever. They are both believer. They are both Christian. So it's the thing is not easily applied.
Yeah, but we've seen situations where, for instance, a believer gets married to an unbeliever, and then the unbeliever is maltreating or treating the believer in a certain way that is not permissible. And the believer is saying, no, because I don't want to hurt God, or because I don't want people to start talking, I have to stay. In that situation, it is a clear-cut principle, isn't it?
That you should leave.
You can leave if the person, because if the person is beating, battering you, always making you sorrowful, it means the person is not willing to stay. And the scripture also talks about, can two work together except they be agreed?
Somebody asked me this question, and she put me in the corner and said, sir, if the man is beating the girl, do you advise her to stay? And I told her, I said, you're asking me the question from the middle. How did the girl find the man? We need to also go to the beginning. Yeah, people are seeing danger, all red flags, and they're getting involved. I know it's another discussion. All red flags, and they're getting involved. And in our council, we need to divorce. I see people like Paul and Nietzsche. It's not easy to have that stand to say divorce is a no. It's not easy. It's not very popular. And I know this time there's a lot of backlash on social media. But we need to also go back to our daughters and our sons. Yeah, those days, parents get involved in who you get married to. They check, they interview the person, they put their feet down, say, no, I don't even trust the person's family. You know, all those kind of things. And we had better marriage. Now people meet 1, 2, 3 months. Sometimes I wonder, you see the post, the greatest guy in the world, I love it with all my heart, I cannot do without it. So you met the guy 3 months ago. Where did all this emotion develop from? Or through a link? So you need to also go back to, please, a different topic. How are we choosing? Who are we choosing? Are we desperate? Somebody is getting married. Sometimes we put a lot of attention on the grand marriage, the grand entrance, the dancing, everything, on the wedding and not the marriage. So there's a lot of show, and people are not set or ready for marriage.
But in this case,
in an instance where
that come all six now for me.
No, keep it cool. In an instance where the person married in quote right in terms of choosing, but along the line maybe the believer backslided or whatever it is.
For instance, look at the case study of a lady on social media who was said to have called off her marriage because the guy started beating her after he paid her bride price. So in that case, all things were right, everything was looking good until he paid the bride price and then started beating her.
So sadly, we seem to go back to the same circle. My issue today is that I know that marriage has issues. I don't want us to give a blanket. The guy loses his job and there's no job for 3-4 years. I'm not paying school fees. Okay, it's too tough for me. I'm walking away. The job can come in the 4th, in the 5th year. Understand? Or we've thrown our things out. It's a terrible marriage. I want us to look on violence. Understand? My major concern or discussion is on violence as it relates to divorce and separation. I don't want to give a blanket thing that's okay for any itch you have, for any headache you have. Let's move out. If that is what we have had, many marriages will not be standing. I'm married for 13 years. If every issue I had with my wife or she had with me, we had said, okay, stay in your mother's house, you separated. We'll have separated several times. You know?
But in this
marriage,
case,
violence.
Yes, you just talked about the fact that maybe one of the two parties may not have a job or a source of income. For instance, in this case, it was said that the late Osinachi's husband, Peter Nwachukwu, didn't or doesn't have a job. What do you think? Do you think that maybe some form of financial pressure crept into the marriage and then it led to violence?
Of course, it's another topic again now. Finances is a major issue with marriage. And people who are crazily in love should be told this truth. You know, there's the amazing love and intercourse, then you have to face bills. Yeah, you have to face bills. You have to face student school fees, feeding, house rents. It puts a lot of pressure on marriage, even strong Christian marriage. It puts a lot of pressure on marriage. So we need to also discuss, people get married, discuss the matter of finances. Is a major part of the, apart from infidelity, finances stands up there on things that causes marriage to break. Yeah, apart from infidelity. So,
and it's the least discussed.
Big issue. So we need to also discuss, like theirs now has to do with finances. The woman is bringing in the money. Understand?
And it was said that he was in charge of her own
money.
finances.
So when the role is reversed, I've had people say that, look, when the role is reversed, when the woman is the breadwinner, it's a different ball game.
But shouldn't it lighten matters when you're in charge? You still have control of her money.
Well, people, they love. In fact, sadly, we have not even heard from the man at all to know what he has to say. He has a lot of things that are not even clear. I'm not sure. But he may be in charge of the money, but the one is making the money. Also, the issue of jealousy, where there a lot of yes. I cannot even discuss what it is here.
Mostly yes.
Let's close in on the issue of violence, just as you've said. You talked about the need to choose right, that is the beginning and all of that. We've had instances where it seemed like they chose right. You've even heard both parties say, oh, God said we should, or maybe a pastor, and they prayed several months and all of that. And it looked like they were destined to be together. But along the way, temperament came in, or aggression, and it became violent. In that instance, is this still an issue of choosing right, or someone working on his or her temperament, or, you know, that's one. Then two, as a cleric, now that it has to do with violence, using this as a case study, what would have been your suggestion to Osinachi if you had known?
I have two daughters. Yes, I have two daughters, and I don't want anybody to beat them. Yeah. So we are emotional beings. Yeah, I don't want anybody to beat them. I won't say go back to a man that wants to kill you. Understand? Irrespective of whatever I think. Go back to a man that kills you, that is beating you. So for me, I have maybe personal opinion. Understand? So concerning humanity and life. These things were not really there some 20 years ago. When is the Christian body of believers is like, oh, their mind is correct. No matter how much pressure, man does not beat the wife. We don't hear of this man beating wife among the
or perhaps they were not being talked about.
They're not talked about.
Perhaps they were happening on the ground and nobody was talking about it.
I've been around Christianity for a while. We had other issues, but violence was not was rare. But now it's getting common. And we need to start saying, what do we do? Sometimes it's difficult to confront it. It's not like addiction. It's difficult to confront it. Say, look, someone say I have a problem with addiction. Say, go and pray. I've prayed, it's not going. I've prayed, it's not going.
But there are still practical steps when it comes to addiction.
Yeah, so there's okay. So you say, okay, we pray it's not going, try Bible study, let's try rehab. That's time we start something we have to face as church and say, let's try rehab. So the same thing is happening with marriage. Say, look, the guy is violent. You know, they may have high blood pressure and a little push can kill her. What do we do with violence? Should we call for a separation? Yeah. Should we involve the law? Yeah. Sometimes there's law involved that says, look, right on the you will not touch this lady again. There are domestic violence something in Lagos State. Yeah. I say, look, I love you, but let's go to the law and said, look, you have beaten me once, let's make it rule. Cannot try it again, or the other will pick you up. So the fear of the law may also help to say, look, if you touch this woman again, you spend compulsory 3 months in prison, but you won't consider stop. Or we will report it officially at a place of work. Some companies will not, you are gone. They hear that you beat your wife, that's the end. They say, okay, let's make it also report at place of work. That's it. The man was violent to his wife, and it goes into his appraisal or something. So it makes him also say, look, this thing does not end with this family. It may go to domestic violence stuff, it may get to my place of work, I may lose my job, it may enter my file that wherever I go to look for a job, is always there, domestic violence, I cannot get any job, no matter how qualified I am. Such something we should have. And this may help people to say, look, no matter how crazy I am, not like I tell people, no matter how crazy you are in Europe or America, you don't go and touch a 15-year-old girl. You know you are gone forever. You are gone forever. Your career is finished. But yeah, in Africa, there's no law that is saying, everybody look at the girl is fine. So it's no matter how crazy you are, the girl is fine. Don't touch her.
Some people have been advocating for capital punishment for domestic violence. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's not right under the law.
If of course it would be put in the constitution if that is accepted. I
think it's battering. I'm not a lawyer, but the legal part, you can't say you kill somebody for not killing somebody. Understand? Even sadly, even the way Osinachi died, it sadly may still come under manslaughter and not premeditated murder. So to kill the things the sledgehammer may be overboard. I'm not supporting violence,
yes, but
to say capital punishment looks excessive.
I asked earlier, what would be your suggestion to Osinachi if she had come to meet you as a pastor a few months before the unfortunate incident?
I need to think about it. What will I have put?
Then
I don't have a ready-made answer. I'm just
okay.
I want to sincerely.
Maybe not her. Let's put it this way then. If as a pastor of the church you have a young couple or maybe a couple could have been 10 years.
Normally a pastor will say God forbid, but let's continue.
It could have been 10 years, or even less or more in marriage, and the issue of violence is there. Today the black eye, tomorrow broken nose, and what have you. What would be your advice to the couple, especially the victim? Then the focus seems to be on what Osinachi should have done. Now, as a pastor, what would have been your advice as well to the man who is the aggressor?
Okay, it's a bit stretch, but let me start this way. Usually, a lot of things have changed. Usually, a person that has been in a church for 10 years, so maybe like Osinachi, who have been married for a while, the pastor has a lot of influence in such homes, a lot of influence. So that sometimes the statement that I would tell pastor, sometimes make people shiver. I don't want pastor to rebuke them. Understand? And pastor say, come and see me. The man is already repenting and scared. But things have changed. Things have changed.
When they even speak against pastors
on social
media.
The authority, the respect.
The reverence.
Yeah, the reverence, is eroding. Understand? Before now, it could have been called a man and have talk, and the man is sobbing. But now, people just 1 month in this church, 2 months there, we don't have that kind of authority over people like before. I have people who are pastor for years, and I have a lot of authority with respect to say, not head of, come, let me see you. So, Osinachi's case now, I don't even have the information of where they used to worship together, who was their pastor, for how long he has been their pastor, how much of it does he know.
Wasn't the pastor an angel?
Yeah. She, according to reports, she was the lead singer
in his church.
Dunamis.
Yeah. There are a lot of reports that I don't even know which one
to be. That's why I said according to
I don't know. There are a lot of reports. I don't know so now it's out there. So what will I have advised her? I'm not sure. I don't have all the pictures, all the story. But as a father, I will not, because the women are weaker vessels. Some punches you can take as a man. You hit the woman, she's gone. But as a father, I'm more tender towards the female. They are weaker. So my mind, working on my mind is really different from somebody punching the wife. What will I have? I don't know what I will have advised. If she had come to meet me and say, my wife is beating me. If I had influence over the husband, I can call the others, I can have discussion, we can really, really open up the matter. We don't have sincere discussion again. Everybody is careful, don't hurt the man, it's his family,
but
his
what
ego.
if he continues after the conversation?
Exactly.
What will I do? Yes. I don't know.
No, I like the sincerity, but
I don't know. But I will not, if the man is violent and is not some men are violent, but they are also very maybe skinny and their punch cannot be tough. But a man that is well built, like the husband was thick and violent, I may have to put the woman out. because it can kill her. Yeah, it
And
can
he
kill
did
her.
kill her.
Yeah, if they are maybe some people are almost of the same, they can
Stature.
the same stature, they can defend themselves. But if they say, look, if you see my wife and myself, I'm like a giant. Someone used to say, "Are you not even afraid of this husband you have? Yeah, is married to a giant?" You know.
But we know that it's not even just about the physical punches. There's a lot that goes on, the emotion, the psychological trauma and all of that, especially someone who ministers to people. That way it is affecting even her ministration.
Now, if it's emotional, I know they're all battering. If it's emotional, if it's psychological, I know it's still battering, but it can still be handled over a period of time.
I'm saying even the physical punches trickle down to affect both the emotions,
self-esteem,
self-esteem, you know, all of that.
lot.
Yeah, but if you had only stayed at not physical, that's why there's marriage and there's room for growth. If it's emotional, the guy does not handle a lot of things. You know, the guy is not. I've had somebody say that my husband has not slept with me for 1 year. You know, a lot of things that we can stay together and be resolving. A lot of we should not take that away from marriage. Some things will stay together and we are resolving. Even somebody has lost his job, somebody still has the job, somebody is not handling something well, we can stay together and be resolving. And we should not take that away from marriage. It's a place where we keep learning, we keep resolving. Some things come up after 15 years. We have not seen it for the first 13 years of our marriage. It comes up and okay, we start resolving it. It's a continual resolving institution. But violence takes a different turn because it can cause to death. It can lead to death, it can lead to permanent disability. So it takes a different turn and makes the things we have learned about marriage, the resolution, let's talk together, come and see pastor. Violence puts a new dimension to it.
But let's look at the role of the family in all of this. For instance, in Osinachi's case, later sadly, it was said that the family were oblivious to some of the things that were happening. They had an idea, but at some point she was keeping a lot of these details from the family. What's your reaction to that?
Okay, a lot of reports, as I said again, different reports. Some say they knew, some did not know. And you know, sometimes a controlling man can really keep the family away. Yeah, I was talking to somebody.
It was said that he kept the family.
Yeah, I was talking to someone yesterday. She was telling me that I've not seen my sister for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and they are not even sure. I've not heard her voice. I've not seen her. And the man says she's okay. She's okay. You know, she was very agitated. You know, and said, "Look, are we sure she's even alive?" You know, so it's not her fault. Sometimes some men can go that far and lock them away from communicating their own.
Even phone calls, she can make phone calls.
Some cases the phones are seized.
Yeah, seized or threatened with. You know, I've had cases whereby it's just a controlling man. I've had cases whereby the man had told the woman that, look, you are my wife. You are supposed to obey me. I want you to help us. I want to raise money for the family by stepping with men outside. Yeah.
But you know, the principle of submission also comes into this, because a lot of people were saying perhaps because she understood the principle of submission, she felt that yes, he would change. Again, all these are based on hearsay, speculations, because we've not heard from both parties. But if you look at the fact that there's the principle of submission in marriage, and these people, and she had to keep all of this based on the fact that she wanted to be submissive and respect her husband. Did she do the right thing? Okay, before you answer that, let's take a break. We'll be right back and the conversation continues. Please stay with us.